So welcome to our class today. Hope you're able to get me clearly, though I'm not able to get your feedback, but I'm sure you're able to see clearly. If you are not able to see, you can tell me. I'll be able to make some adjustments here. So our topic today is angles. So what are we going to look at today? We're just going to get to know what an angle is or what angles are. So in our definition there, you can see an angle is nothing but a space between two meeting lines. In fact, these lines should be straight. Okay, that is from the definition. And then how do we measure this space between two meeting lines? They are measured in degrees. So let's take, for example, suppose you have a line, okay, like this one. We can also have another line. Let me use a different color. Okay, so these two lines are meeting at this point. So the space between these two lines is what we call an angle. In this case, we have this one here inside. This is an angle. So this is showing us the space between two meeting straight lines. But that is not the only angle we have. Even this one outside, this one, this is also an angle. Okay? So how do we measure this angle? Let us look at another example here on how to measure the angles. So suppose we have a straight line. Okay, suppose we have this straight line here. Now this straight line you want to measure an angle. One thing you need to understand first is that you need to choose the point of intersection. What we've drawn here is just a straight line. Now let's assume here we have two straight lines. We have two, and then they are meeting at this point. Okay. Then we want to find the size, or rather the space, between these two angles. Okay. So from this side, this is the space here on top. But we can also have a space downward there. Now, so how do we measure this space between two angles? There is one point I have to mention to say a straight line has an angle of 180 always. Why do I say 180? Remember, we've assumed to say this point is where the two lines are meeting. So we need the space in between these two lines. So we are going to use a protractor, which is the tool we use to measure angles. And then I'll show you how to measure angles. So let's get our protractor here. So when we get our protractor, all we have to do is to measure, which I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. Okay, here is my protractor. So we want to measure the angle here. So what do? We've chosen our intersecting point where these two lines are meeting. So they are meeting here. So you put the line on the protractor there. This center should be straight to the intersecting center that you have chosen. Okay. So how do we measure the angle? The protractor has two scales. There is this one, the outer part, and the inner part. Okay, so the inner scale, we use it when we are measuring an angle from right to left, or if we are going anti-clockwise. Okay, and then we use the outer one, that is the outer scale, when we are measuring an angle which is outside, or when we are measuring an angle clockwise. Let's take, for example, want to measure an angle of 45. Okay, 45 clockwise. So we are using the inner scale, this one. when you are counting, you always start from 0. You can't start from 180. So that makes sense to reason in that way. So we are using the inner scale, this one. So how do we measure? You start counting from 0 here, okay, using the inner scale. This is your line where you are measuring an angle from. So the whole of this protractor is the space between these two lines which are meeting at this point that we have chosen. So what size is the space in degrees between these two lines? That's what we want to measure. So from here we'll start counting. Let me get this, and let me change the color so that you'll be able to see. So starting from 0, this is where we are starting from. Hope you're able to see my cursor. Okay, so we want an angle of 45 to measure it from this line. We've mentioned to say the whole of this straight line is 180. You can take the readings from here. From this point 0, using the inner scale, we have 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, up to 180 here. So the space between these two lines, straight line, which are meeting here, is 180. Now from this, we want to measure an angle of 45. Okay, so you start counting from here, 0, using the inner scale, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, right? Now to count 45, you have 5 units in between. So 45 will be between 40 and 45. There we're going to find 45. So you can just draw a line from the center. Sorry, let me use this other one. So from the center here, okay, then we want to measure this angle. So the center is here. Now this angle should be 45, and we've said 45 will be between 40 and 50. So our angle will be there. So how do we indicate? We indicate that by drawing a line like this. So from here to the base. So this angle is 45. From here up to there, this angle is 45. So you need to indicate that your angle is 45. Now 45 what? Should not forget degrees. Okay, so this is how we measure angles. We can also look at another example. So this is a 45. We can use the same protractor that we've put here. Okay, so this is 45 that we've drawn. Now suppose we want to draw an angle of 140. How do we do that? So an angle of 140, we'll use the same thing. Let's get our protractor again. So we get our protractor here and want to measure an angle of 45. So this angle, I mean not 45, this angle, okay, let me do this. Okay, let's redo this thing. Let's first draw a straight line. Remember that this angle is 45. Let's make this to be our example A. Okay, so this is our examples. This was an example, so let's say example 1. Okay, this is our example 1. Okay, now I want to answer example 2, so let's say this will be our example 2. Okay, now in our example 2, the angle that we want to measure is 150. So this one here was 45. Okay, let me write it here. This was 45 degrees. Now in our B, that is example B, we want to measure an angle of 150. Okay, 150 degrees. That's 150 there. Okay, let me just raise there. Hope you're able to see that 150. And we should not forget degrees, because when you forget degrees, then it's not an angle. Okay, let's go back now and get our protractor here so that we can measure. Okay, there we have it. So the first thing you have to do, I suppose, to draw a straight line. Now I've forgotten. So the first thing you have to draw your straight line. So let's draw our straight line. Okay, so this is our straight line. Then you get your protractor. So when you get your protractor, you need to remember how to put it. First you need to choose an intersection point. So from this line, let's say our intersection point is, okay, let's paste, then get it properly. Okay, so there we get our protractor. Suppose, okay, we put it here. This is our center, that's where we want our angle to be. The next one I'm going to do it from a different point, so that you see it can be measured from anywhere. So there we want to measure an angle of 45. Okay, of course when you are measuring 90, you don't even have to use a protractor, because you know that if you have a vertical line and horizontal line, when they meet, they form a 90 degree. I'm sure you can see it from the diagram here. So this one straight, okay, and this one, the horizontal line, they are meeting at this point and it is forming 90, and this side is 90, giving you 180, the straight line. Now I want to measure this angle 150. Okay, this one here, 150. So we do the same thing. We count from from the inner scale, 0, 10, 20, until you find your 150 rather. Okay, so 150 is here. So you go back from your center there, and okay, if you want, we can do it from this line. Okay, the bottom one, or even this one, we assume this is our baseline. Okay, let's use this one. So our angle, we want 45, we want 150. Let me change the color so that you'll be able to see. So 150 from the center is here, right here. This shows our angle 150. So you draw a line to show that your angle is 150. When you are measuring an angle, you always measure clockwise. So our angle is here, and this is our baseline. So this angle is 150. Okay, this is 150 degrees. So that is how we measure angles. Okay, the other example that I would want us to do is where we want to measure an angle, let's say of let's say what can you suggest? Let's say 160, isn't it? Okay, let's say 160. Here we are dealing with angles which are within 180. So let's say we want to measure the 160 line. Okay, let's do it from here. Okay, the 160, this will be our C. Okay, so this is our C. We want to measure an angle of 160 degrees, or let's say 165. Okay, So 165 degrees, right? Let me just write this properly. So this is our 165 degree angle. Okay, 165 degree. So the first thing you do is you need to find where you are going to your two lines to meet. Okay, so we have this line which is 180. We know this one is a straight line, but we want an angle of 165. So to measure that one, again you get your protractor. Okay, how do you get it? Here we are doing it. So this is our protractor. Okay, make sure where you are able to do what I'm doing. You have your protractor, like I mentioned. Okay, you have your protractor, and then take that protractor and put it on your straight line. So this time we want to do it from here at the end. Okay, now doing it at the end will not be okay. Let's put it here. Okay, so we're measuring an angle of 165. Let's put it there, and then we use the same procedure. We count from here. This is 0. Okay, this is 10 until you find your 160 there. This is 150, so 160 is there. Okay, 165, you need to go further 5 units. This is 160, so 165 is here. Okay, so from the center here, you will draw a straight line passing at 165, which is this one here. Okay, so let me change the color. So from this is our baseline. Okay, this is our baseline. Don't forget, we are assuming this one as our baseline. So this is 165. So we have 165. This is our angle that we are measuring. So it means the space between this line, okay, a green one, and this pink one, they are meeting at this point. This is the point where they are meeting. Okay, this is the point where they are meeting. So the angle from a green line up to there, it's 165. So that is the size of the space in degrees. Okay, now here is a work for you guys. So the work that you are going to do is you are going to measure. I want you to measure these angles. Maria. Oh. So the example that you are going to do is this one. I mean, this is your exercise. So you are going to measure the following angles. Okay. You are going to measure the following angles. So the first one, okay, let me just do this. We just use automatic. You measure A. I want you to measure a 75 degrees angle. Okay, the other one, which will be your B, learn how to measure 98. Okay, 98 degrees. And the C, This one will be an introduction to our next class. So in this one, I want you to measure 270 degrees. Okay, I want you to draw a 270 degrees angle. Okay, unless there is a question before we end our class today, or if you are unable to ask, you can still post it in our WhatsApp group. I'll be able to respond. I'll draw it somewhere and I'm going to respond to you. So thank you so much.